All right, traders, welcome to the end of day recap. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and it is the first of the month. And I think, being it's the first of the month, I think, part of today's, I don't want to say all of today's price action, but, clearly what happens on the first of the month is sometimes there is a reallocation trade. There's new money sometimes that's put into the to the month or taken out on the first of the month. So I think today we had some new money being put to work in a bunch of different areas that did pretty well today. So we had I can give you kind of the catalyst for today and some of the reasons for the rally. But I have Apple in front of us. Yeah, they missed on earnings. The iPhone sold was light, but I think more importantly, their guidance was pretty light. I think Tim Cook came out. The conference call doesn't start actually starts right now. It's about 5 o'clock. So we'll see if they say something or there's a reason for that. I read something where Tim Cook already gave a note out to Reuters saying it had something to do with the seasonal period or something for the new iPhone. So I don't know. Maybe he gives more details about that. For now, it's down to about 211, 212, which helps to kind of look at the 1 hour chart, basically where it was, the support from last week. If it breaks that, then we could have some more. Sorry, let me go to the daily chart and we'll look at 211 on the 211, 212 on the daily chart. Notice that it took out this version point of control last week and bounced. And we had this hammer bar, so I did not play it for earnings. But if anybody says that they did not play it for earnings, or I don't have any exposure to Apple, that's complete bullshit, right? Because if you own stocks anywhere, like if you own it in a mutual fund, if you own mutual funds, or if you own ETFs, a SPY ETF, you've got Apple exposure. So don't let anybody on Twitter or wherever say, "Oh, I don't have any exposure to Apple." Because I see these knuckleheads all the time. And you've got exposure to Apple someplace if you own stocks, or if you own, unless you own only single stocks, and for sure. But you've got exposure to it someplace if you own ETFs or mutual funds for the most part. It just is what it is. All right. By the way, this video is for information purposes only. They're always for information purposes only, so don't get mad at me. But anyway, like I own XLK, for example, and Apple's 20% of XLK. So it's really, it is really interesting since they made this change. It's without really going off on a tangent, but if you've been charting XLK, you can't really do that anymore. I think anyway. That's my personal take on charting, because the names that were in XLK are no longer there, such as Amazon. Amazon wasn't in here, but Google, Facebook, those have been stripped out. So the biggest weight now is Apple. Same thing with XLY. You can't really go back and look at look at XLY, the consumer discretionary ETF, and look at support and resistance levels, because the XLY consumer discretionary ETF has been completely changed. So I try to I try to tell people this on Twitter, and they look at me like I have two heads, because the ETFs are only driven off of the basket of the names that are in there. If you change around the basket significantly, it's not the same. It's no longer the same thing that you were charting months ago. But in any event, that's, like I said, I try not to get off on a tangent. So let me go over the catalyst for the day. I think that there was some new money being put to work. One of the first things that we saw today, which gave me a little bit of confidence for the day, is to watch the small caps. The small caps have been leading the moves. And so I continue to watch small caps. They're not updating here on Thinkorswim, but I could tell you that the performance was up 2.3%. That doesn't have a lot to do with I think what got a lot of attention today, which I think is partly for today's move, is the talks, Trump saying things positively about trade talks. Now, who knows what that's going to result in, but for the time being, it gave a pretty good squeeze to a lot of names. Again, we just don't know if they're going to actually make an agreement. We've heard that things go negatively and positively about talk, so I don't really know if I could put a lot of faith behind that other than just for a trade. And that's basically what I'm doing, right now. So IWM, nice move. Turn the corner. I was joking around a little bit as I like to do, but I said, today's word of the day is going to be overhead resistance, right? How many times are you going to hear about overhead resistance and trying to figure out if we're going to retake levels? Best thing I could do, because and I said this during the midday session as well, but no one has a crystal ball. There's no one who's going to be able to tell you. So if you're looking for that, you're not going to get it from me. You're not going to get a prediction from me. What I will do is take shots where I think there's good support, and I will look for some nice trade setups. And the trades that I have on, because I sold put spreads in the Russell a couple days ago, which are working out very well. For now, I have the strike, and I used the Russell. I used RUT options because you get a better tax treatment when you do index options. You could look that up on Google. Better to do index options than the better to do index options than the ETFs. There's better tax privileges there. So so what I did the other day is I sold the Russell, took advantage of this move down, and I sold the December 7th, 1470, 1450. So, here's my bogey is basically the lows. That's where I set that. So, as long as we stay around here, I'm pretty safe in that trade. But we'll see what happens from here on. And then, for trades, and again, when the VIX is around 20, 25, I hope, if you're not in my trading room, I hope other trading rooms that you may see are telling you to sell premium, really, because that, instead of trading directionally using options, you really want to be selling premium because it's heightened, right? You want to sell things that are high and buy things. When the VIX gets back to, below 15, sure, playing options directionally. For swing trades, you can do that, but it's a lot more expensive. A lot of what I've been doing is if I'm playing directionally, I'm using call spreads. I did that in a few different trades. AMD was one trade that I'm now basically at a double in AMD. But yeah, that's the best you could do. Is management is key. Not so much with making a call whether the market's going to return or not, or stall out. Do I think that we could stall out once we get to certain levels? Sure. So you got to lighten up your exposure, and that's just the name of the game, and that's the whole process of trading, and rinse and repeat. So we are going to do a member only webinar next week. We're going to talk about some of the things that happened in October, things to learn from. I think it's very important to take trading is a constant learning process. It's never, hey, I figured this out and I know everything and I'm moving on. It's always taking your process and improving it, figuring out what you did wrong, and setting up some rules that can really help you. All right, so we're going to be doing a member only webinar next week discussing that, and I think that'll be, and I'll be talking about my losers and winners, right? Not just winners. But anyway, so I do want to get on to some more of today's performance. So I'm already 8 minutes into the video, but the Chinese Internet ETF, my goodness, and I've mentioned this in the earlier video, but yeah, there's been a lot of inflows going into China. I think there's been about $500 or $600 million of inflows going into the Chinese ETFs in the last 2 weeks. That's MCHI actually saw the biggest inflows, because I measure these things every day, investment going in and out, but you could see the volume. I think they were even maybe a little bit early. They bought some here. Sorry, I don't have Bloomberg outflows up right now, but they might have been a little bit early, but they've been buying for the last 2 weeks. You could see again the volume and new money coming in, and that's also an FXI and MCHI. I could go over the option flow for those three names, but at this point, it's the momentum guys who are buying the weekly FXI and the weekly, a little bit of KWeb today. So again, don't let that fool you when there's a bunch of FXI options traded today. they're reacting and they're trying to play catch up and momentum. What was really the savvy trades were last week. I think it was on Friday, and I put that out on Twitter. You could see my Twitter page, or you could just look at, make sure you query KWeb. But there was a nice substantial order in the Chinese Internet ETF towards the end of last week. That's the stuff we want to be looking for, and to give us a little bit of a heads up that there's some positioning going on. Not, in my opinion, not the stuff today where it's just basically Momo guys who are day trading. That's useful if you're day trading, because that Chinese Internet did go up almost 8%, almost closed up 8% today. And then just to kind of get away from the whole China, that headline. Before I do that, semiconductors had a hell of a day today, up 4.8%. And I think that's almost as big as the, I guess this was a bigger decline day, but man, you kind of have to hand it to this move back in the semiconductors. Will they be retesting up here? Sure, absolutely. But again, this gave you a nice tradable bounce to kind of pick. And this is just the ETF. And the ETF saw calls today. Micron saw calls today. Broadcom saw calls today. MRVL saw calls today. Next week's calls. NXPI saw calls. Qualcomm saw calls today. But you kind of pick and choose. I mean, just because there's calls that go up, that doesn't necessarily make the stock go up. These guys are playing momentum. I mean, I purchased AMD 2 days ago on the 200-day moving average. And that was, like I said, I put on a call spread, and I managed to get right about a double on that, oversold into support. I could share a couple other trades, which I went out on Twitter a couple times, because this is the only trade that I added yesterday. I'm basically managing a lot of trades that I've added the last week. But Carvana up 15%, a name that was way oversold, into support again. So a great place, I thought, to give it a shot. And when I put it on yesterday, it did nothing. So you had to give it a little bit of patience. All right, so that was my nice catch. I also talked about a couple other trades. Home Depot was up 2.6%. I talked about how also into support. It took out a VPOC. I mentioned this. I sent out a trade idea 2 days ago on Home Depot about how you can be selling premium, not buying, not playing it directly, but selling puts, because of the implied volatility was so high. So I think I mentioned that Home Depot trade. You could have been collecting about over $2 for the strikes. I put this trade on small, 177.5, 172.5 short put spread, so $5 wide. It was you could have put that on for about 230. It's marking at 90 cents today. All right, so that's a great way to take advantage, and that's what we've been doing. I've been giving out a lot of ideas. Same thing with ALGN. I think I talked about this in yesterday's video. Some really nice support on the weekly chart where you could have sold a put spread, and look at it hold 212. Great place to put on a trade. And all these names, right? If they break support, then you got to honor that stop, because we don't always know that the support is going to hold. What else do we see today? Biotech. So probably did not have much to do. This is a decent part of IWM, but nice to see XBI get back above the value area for the week. Notice it closed right there. It closed right there last week. The thing about a weekly chart is the closing bar is most important. The closing bar is not going to be at the end of the day like a daily chart, but it's going to be at the end of the day or at the end of the week, right? So we actually went into value, but we've got a chance to actually close above. So even if you didn't get involved in XBI when it's up 5.5%, wait to see where the weekly bar closes. And you could still sell put spreads into value if you think that that's going to hold up. Maybe you could sell a put spread, go long a call spread. So if it stays here and does nothing, you're not hurt by that trade. But that's something that you could do, especially with the volatility. The VIX came down to a 19. By the way, what a hell of a signal we got on Friday with the VIX, where the VIX went lower on a day where the SPY went lower. So perfect divergence, right? That's what if you pay attention to the VIX, again, please do not follow these UVXY and VXX. You do know that these are all crap, right? And again, all you have to do is look at a 10-year chart or 20-year chart of VXX versus the actual VIX, and you could tell that these products are absolute crap. So please, and you can respond back to me on Twitter or wherever you like, but these VXX and UVXY are complete trash products. So I'm sorry to say it in such a negative manner, because I don't normally talk like that unless I feel that way. But I saw somebody quoting, "Oh, what am I going to do? What's the double levered VXX? Why? What are you going to do? Please, please don't trade that. It's horribly inefficient. I guess for day trading purposes, it's fine, but it's down. The VXX, again, I'm not showing a chart of it right now, but it's down 99.9% over the last 10 years. So it will have bouts where it moves up, but it does not track the VIX very well. It's a horrible. And again, put those two charts up side by side, and hopefully that will convince you to never look at VXX, UVXY, TVIX, any of these. These are trash products. And there's better ways to make money than that. The only thing I could say is to sell call spreads in some of those instruments. But again, I'm not giving you any advice or anything like that. That's my complete thought. And again, I used to trade these products. I was in ETFs for a long time. I know the mechanics behind them. They're not good. All right, so that's that. But yes, the VIX. So the VIX gave a really nice divergence. It went down when the market was down. The VIX usually goes up when the market goes down. On Friday, gave a great signal. And we just don't get those very, very frequently. So what else? I mentioned the biotechs up, XBI up almost 6% on the day. The three defensive amigos that I've been calling them, they actually did okay. XLU was the only one that was down. Utilities, REITs, and consumer staples finished in the green. So I don't know if this value move. I still think value will be at a play. I think that the XLP may have more to run. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with playing consumer staples a little bit, because all these names in the consumer staples, if you're playing options, are super cheap. Coca-Cola, I guess, was down just a touch for the day. What else did I want to cover? I feel like there's a couple other names. We saw some calls in Honeywell today. I did set up a trade in that. I'm not going to go over that because this is a public video. But we saw a nice aggressive call buyer that went up. BX and KKR saw some calls. Again, so where's the support for this stuff? Right? I mean, you could basically draw a line. Now, it is just below the 200-day moving average. It's a pretty flat-looking 200-day moving average for Blackstone. But, you've got support in here. And like anything else, as long as you're being disciplined. But there was definitely some action in both of these areas. So I mentioned the momentum call buyers in the semis today. I mentioned the private equity. What else in terms of option activity did we see? A lot of things. A lot of the casinos. Casinos do have a little bit of a correlation. Now, the Macau numbers came out today, but they have a little bit of a correlation to what's going on in China. So the China name's going up. I have to think that also helped with the catalyst move. The other thing, which, if in case you missed my midday video, one of the things that I keep jumping up and down about is not to go bananas with these index levels. Oh, if the S&P goes over this level, then we're good. Or if we fail at this level, well, that should have told you to get out. I mean, I don't really buy into that much, because it really depends on what's moving within the S&P. Again, the S&P is a sum of parts. Some names are going to go up, some names are going to go down. Last weeks, we saw everything go down, right? So it is important to take note of some important levels, but I'm not going to do micro micromanaging on every S&P level. There's better opportunities, and I've been saying this for years, there's better opportunities in single names and in sectors than there is trading the SPX. Just my opinion. Unless you're a long-term trader, there's just a lot more, and it will also give you a good sense of if, last couple of weeks we saw all the defensives rally. Just looking at the SPX, it's not going to tell you that. And I thought there was plenty of opportunities in defensive names. The Walmart trade was a home run last week, right? But looking at an SPX level is not going to tell you that. Same thing with today's sector performance. With the SPY up, what did we gain today? 1%. It's not going to tell you that the semiconductors were up 4.8%. Right. So again, I'm just hammering home this point because I think there's other things going on. Amazon was a big winner for some traders in the Tribeca Trade Group room today. I did not trade Amazon today, but guys did a great job scalping it today. I thought we would kind of run out of steam at this bottom of value. Now we're retesting it. So this 1638 level is something to watch for tomorrow for Amazon. All right, so I could go on and on. I've gone for 20 minutes. That's enough, but some huge movers. One other name that did really well today, maybe off some people's radar, was FireEye. After earnings, this thing's been up and away. It did take out a version point of control. Watch this thing tomorrow around the 19 handle. All right, guys, so that's it for today. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.